Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is Tony of Comic Conversations, the podcast that reviews more comics than anybody else. Episode 190, where we talk all things comics for the week of April 19th, 2017. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Alex. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
All right. All right, let's waste no more time and let's go straight into our first segment this week, news. All right, let's go into our first news story. So, a story I'm sure you're going to love to hear about this, Alex. Editor-in-Chief AXEL ALONSO is teasing that something in the pages of Marvel Legacy will break the internet. That's the appropriate reaction, I feel.
You know what pisses me off about this?
They haven't learned anything, and they keep trying to hotshot stuff.
You remember how just like a week ago we heard about how after Secret Empire there wouldn't be any like big crossovers for 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
They've already announced another one.
What do you mean?
That's what this is.
No.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a crossover.
How is it not?
It's not.
What is
there's
it?
no tie-ins involved.
Oh, so it's just a big event.
You know about this though, so
they said no events.
You can't act like this is a secret that just popped out of nowhere.
Such bullshit, though. It's like, just stop. Just write your comics and tell your stories, fuckers.
Well, it's
not going to break the fucking internet. Nobody cares. You already killed everyone. You already changed all the characters. What are you going to do? Fucking change them all back and pretend all the bullshit you've been producing didn't happen?
That's presumably what this thing is supposed to be.
Well, that's not going to break the internet. It's just going to make them happy. And by the way, if they're fucking I got a feeling on this. They're looking at what DC did and they're like, oh, DC's bringing back old stuff. So, like, we should do that. And it's like, here's the thing, Marvel. You don't really have the history DC has. Like, you never completely wrecked your continuity 50 times, and then once so badly that you had to do a big storyline to undo it all.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel never did that. So if they think going back to original numbering, that's going to work, it's like, it's not. You guys change the numbering on a yearly basis, and it doesn't do anything.
I heard some people speculating that it could be the return of the FF.
That's not going to break anything. The FF, their last 2-3 comics didn't sell for shit.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Fantastic Four if written by someone good, but God, I'm just so annoyed with Marvel right now.
They're trying too hard. Well, I think Marvel, you talked about bringing back the old stuff. I think Marvel will be the first to say, oh, we were the ones who did that first because we brought back what's called Secret Wars, and we did a Clone Saga again.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know. You know what was good when somebody brought old stuff back?
I don't know what.
Morrison's Batman run. When he found a way to fit in like Batmite and stuff,
mm-hmm.
but in a logical way. That was cool. But just bringing stuff back to bring it back, it's like, nah. People didn't really like Clone Saga.
Well, that's why I think Slott insisted it be called Dead No More, because he just wanted to stay as far away as he can from the Clone name. But I think the marketing department decided to put Clone in there, and I think the compromise was Clone Conspiracy, because I think the marketing department originally wanted to call it Clone Saga. And they had to taper that back, and they agreed on the Clone Conspiracy name.
Yeah, we all knew what it was.
Well, the thing is, remember we saw all the solicitations for it, and it was always called Dead No More. And then as soon as it started, it was called Clone Conspiracy.
Yeah.
So
that was the compromise.
Yeah. I still can't make heads or tails of what this is ultimately going to be.
Gotta say, like, what would have happened? Like, would Slott have left the book?
No, but it's one of these things that I think they both have to be on board, or Marvel wants them to play nice or whatever.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, we got to keep Dan Slott on to write that book for another 15 years. Dan Slott's like good on that book, but like honestly, I have been not ever so slowly losing interest in Spider-Man.
That could just that could be just cyclical, because it's like, who's to say if they put somebody else on, it'll be any good?
Well, yeah, but right now it's like I'm just bored. Like, and it's like he's not a bad writer, but I don't care. I think I'm burnt out on Spider-Man.
I'm fine
I think I've read too many Spider-Man books.
I'm fine with the series, but I know you've communicated that for quite a while. Now, I've even contemplated saying, hey, you want to drop Spider-Man?
I don't think anything important's gonna happen.
Well, as I've said before, I have my hills to die on, and Spider-Man's certainly not going to be that.
I don't know yet. I'll see how bad it, or if it gets bad, or not incredibly boring.
I will say this: I don't think, no matter who they put in the title, I don't think it's ever going to run the risk of being canceled. Unlike our next news story, where we have the confirmation of both Star-Lord and Nova being canceled.
Yeah, and I believe there are a few other books, but we couldn't get the names in time. Star-Lord, you wanted to stop reading it almost immediately. I still liked it, but I stopped reading it just to cut down on,
I was disappointed because this is Chip Zdarsky, the guy who just wrapped up Howard the Duck. I was really high on the run. I was hoping this would be, obviously with a different character, but it'd be more of that quality writing, that awesome humor, and I was just like, Like, and I was willing to give it a second issue because I was like, okay, maybe he's just not out the gate really good, but let's give it a second issue. And by the second issue, I was done, and I didn't put my foot down, but this is the one I lobbied to you. I'm like, can we just drop this? I don't want to read this anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, I still liked it in the second issue, but it wasn't amazing or anything. And a part of this could be like, if you like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's not really selling like it used to. And if you look at the history of Guardians spinoffs, they get 1 million and none of them do well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Venom has had 2 canceled comics. Rocket has had 2 canceled comics. I don't know if anyone else even got a book, or Drax was canceled.
Nova's had many cancellations. And we were just talking last week how much we enjoyed the new Nova saga and the new Nova approach to storytelling.
No. I don't know what the problem with Nova is. I mean, the thing is, Nova keeps getting these books, and like, we didn't like the last series, but a lot of people did. Like, a lot of people put them over. And, the new one came out, and I thought they finally hit on something, because they had the kid, and there are a lot of kid superheroes right now, so I could see where that would get a little old. But then they had Richard Rider back, which people have been asking for. But, I mean, again, comic fans ask for things, and then they don't buy it. So, no one to blame but yourselves.
And as far as the going back to the nostalgia thing and the Marvel Legacy thing, it's like, that's another character. Richard Rider. They said they wanted the character back, and they brought it back, and nobody bought it.
Yeah. It just seems like, I think the thing is, like, they replaced Richard Rider with Sam Alexander, and it wasn't like a big deal. It was just like, oh, there's Nova, now there's a new Nova. Alright. It's not like DC, where, a young hero is the sidekick for like decades, and then he finally takes over the mantle and people are ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really do that. I don't know. I've always got the feeling that Marvel just feels like it has less history than DC, even though a lot of these characters have been around for like 50, 60 years.
And
it's just,
the thing is,
you don't feel it.
Yeah, and the quality of their history, I would say, as far as, it's not like DC where it's like a patchwork of so many things that went wrong or so many bad decisions, where it's Marvel, you could question things here and there, especially when you're talking One More Day, but for the most part, there hasn't been anything super controversial when it comes to their past. Maybe the Clone Saga as well, but other than that, like, I can't think of anything really in the Marvel, well, I guess, now I'm thinking another thing, Heroes Reborn. There's been things here and there, but there hasn't.
Yeah, but they undid Heroes Reborn pretty quickly.
Yeah. And
the other thing to note is, when Heroes Reborn happened, the only thing anybody cared about in Marvel was X-Men and Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Like, the Avengers were not a big deal. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, these characters were not important in Marvel. Mm-hmm. They were secondary. Like, whereas even to this day, I don't want to get into it because we're going to review it, but there were there were some glaring character omissions in Secret Empire, and I questioned it because of what those characters are. In the old days, they'd have a big X-Men crossover where the X-Men were doing all kinds of shit. You never said, where are the Avengers? Because nobody cared.
Yeah.
Like, the Avengers
so
were probably
true,
hanging
though.
out wearing jackets.
Uh-huh. I'm sure our old host Dave will take you to task for that.
If he listened to our show, he would be furiously composing a tweet. Dear sirs, the jacket era was amazing. I have read every issue of Avengers.
Who's that? Whose voice are you doing? That doesn't sound like Dave.
Actually, once I finished watching my Puriso and my new anime about women who all date a Cuban man from Florida, I will let you know that the jacket version of the Avengers is the best version of the Avengers. Sirs. That's a reveal, isn't it? I've never done the Dave impression.
I think I don't know if you've done it on the show. I know when we've talked on Skype, you used it a lot, but I'm not sure if you have done it on the show.
My Asian girlfriend told me that the Avengers with jackets is her favorite run.
Wow. Maybe this is a good time to mention, I don't know, I'm not sure if he listens or not, but if this is the first one he listens to in a long time, I think he's going to stop listening. All right, in our final Marvel news story anyway, the guy who will not go away, the X-Men Gold artist, Ardian Syaf, he is now offering $3,000 for an original art of the X-Men Gold that he drew. This guy will just not go away.
Now, so I know this guy, like, is kind of an anti-Semite, but I become more and more of a fan of his the more I learn. It's like he's out of comics, but he's got these pages from this controversial comic, and he's gonna get everything he can for this before he's out of the business. Do you think he's going to draw comics for, like, hardcore fundamentalist Muslim magazines or something? They must exist.
He has to now. Like, I can't imagine. He's going to be, like, their biggest champion now.
I don't know if the Arab world works in the same way as, say, Mexico, where, like, you know, a Mexican does something and gets in trouble for it, and then, like, Del Rio, like, he's not really good, but
Alberto Del Rio.
Yeah, he got fired because of racism, basically, and then he becomes a hero. I think due to the fact that Muslims are not a country, they are a disparate group of people who come from different countries. You cannot actually become a hero in all those countries. However, this guy was, where was he from? The Philippines?
Indonesia,
okay. He might be a hero in Indonesia among his group.
Well, he's already confirmed it in the time since the last update. He's confirmed that he was actually in attendance of the 212 rally in Indonesia, calling for the arrest, jailing, and this is what I found out: for the arrest, jailing, and decapitation of the Christian governor.
What is it with the decapitation thing?
I don't know.
I don't know, because you're aware of the terror. They put out the videos of them, like, cutting the guys' heads off.
Yeah, and here's the
like,
thing: I'm looking.
Can you just shoot them?
Huh?
Can you just shoot them? Do we have any Muslim listeners who can tell us, is there any religious significance to chopping someone's head off? Is that better than shooting them?
Or hanging them, or anything else?
Or yeah, just anything. Like, I'm wondering, like, is it the shock factor? Like, you cut their head off and a bunch of blood squirts out or something?
Is historic significant in the faith, the Muslim faith? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, because I don't know a lot about decapitation. But I imagine it's like in Mortal Kombat, where if you take somebody's head off, fucking blood's just coming out like a gusher out of their neck hole. Because that's what used to happen in Mortal Kombat when you punch somebody's head off.
And I'm sure that was based on reality, right?
Well, I mean, they got it from somewhere, right? Don't you have like the big giant vein in your neck, right?
Yeah.
And if you cut it, the person will always die?
You could answer this by watching a decapitation.
Oh, I don't want to do that though.
Yeah,
That's
neither
icky.
do I, but you have so many questions. I'm like, well.
You're right. I'm gonna look this up. We can continue with the news.
Here's the thing I noticed too. I'm looking at the bleedingcool.com story. And one thing they mentioned was, it was funny that this happened in the same book, and the 212 popped out when they showed Kitty Pryde as the leader of the X-Men. It's like, oh my god. I didn't realize there was a connection there.
Wait, what?
Okay. So part of the 212 protesting was the wanting the removal of the Christian governor, right? Because of their faith, right?
Yeah.
Well, who just so happened to be leading the X-Men?
Storm?
No, in X-Men Gold issue 1.
Oh, leading. Yeah, it was Kitty.
Well, there you go. Maybe that's what set this all off from the beginning when he found out that Kitty Pryde was going to be leading the X-Men. Right,
I don't think so. I think it was just the timing.
All right, let's stop talking about the redheaded stepchild of comic books right now. Let's talk about everybody's favorite, at least for now. Let's talk DC. DC announced their, I don't know how to put this, because they're emphasizing that it's not an imprint, but everything I read about this and all the facts about this seem to point towards a new imprint. They're launching a new, what they're calling, banner. It's called Dark Matter. It's going to start with a single issue, and it's going to lead into a bunch of new series, namely Sideways by writers Dan Diodato and Justin Jordan, artist Kenneth Rutherford, The Silencer by Dan Abnett and artist John Romita Jr., Immortal Men by James, let's see if I can pronounce this, Tyron IV, artist Jim Lee, Damage by Robert Venditti and artist Tony S. Daniel. And here's one that I find interesting because I actually know this one. New Challengers by Scott Snyder and artist Andy Kubert.
Okay, so what this tells me is this is an imprint, and it's that's scary. It's artist focused.
Yeah, it's the 90s all over again.
Yeah, that's not really good. I mean, there were some names on there.
Well, it makes sense when you consider the person who's helming all this is Jim Lee.
He wants to bring his glory days back. Well, Jim, your art is really fucking boring and has been for years now, so you're not really the one to lead the charge here. But you know what? When your editor-in-chief is an artist who came from the time period when artists were, the gods of comics, whatever.
My only thing is, why is Jim Lee in such a powerful position when he's just an artist?
Well, he ran Wildstorm, and technically, if you look at it, he did a really good job with Wildstorm. Like, he brought Alan Moore back into the fold. He is largely responsible for Warren Ellis becoming a big star.
I'm saying none of that is creatively. Nothing of.
No, it was. He hired the people to do those books.
Okay, but then how does that translate to
as an editor?
Yeah.
The editor-in-chief who is largely responsible for who works on books?
Okay, you got a point there, but then explain to me how he deserves his own imprint. Even though it's not being called imprint, it's called a banner.
Well, because he already had his own imprint, and Jim Lee is a name. Like, he has been proven to sell comic books. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't have any particular interest in it. I mean, they are using existing characters.
I feel like everyone's learning the wrong lessons from DC Rebirth.
Well, we don't know. I mean, they put Abnett on something, and Scott Snyder is a name writer. I don't like him, but he's a name writer.
Yeah, but still, it's like, I don't know. It's like
they got Valiant guy in there.
They seem to think. Well, he's the one that writes Green Lantern, so he's not exactly a newbie. My only thing is, it seems like they're thinking, oh, the 90s are back. Let's do stuff that heavily focuses on the artist, and it's like, no, the DC Rebirth is good because basically people want the DC characters, and they didn't like what you're doing with New 52.
But it is different.
In what way?
It's different from what everyone has been doing, because the business for years now, to its benefit, I think, has been very focused on creative, on the stories. We haven't focused on art at that level for a long time.
And here's another question. I have a follow up to it. What's the point of it other than it's probably a Jim Lee pet project? Is this something to, I don't know, to lure artists away and hopefully they'll want to stay at DC and not go off to Image?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think Jim Lee just had an idea and they said, hey, our books are selling good. We could put more books out. How could we sell them? Oh, let's put big name artists on them with sort of name writers.
Yeah, but you have the DC Rebirth imprint. You have Young Animal. You have Wildstorm. And now you're cranking out Dark Knights.
It's not called Dark Knights.
Oh, Dark Matter. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if the market can support all these books.
Well, that's what you do. You flood the market until it no longer supports, and then you drop the low-hanging fruit. I mean, it's a strategy. They're owned by Warner Brothers, dude. They have the money to do it.
Do you think this is any kind of retaliation behind what Marvel's deciding to do, or they're just?
I don't think they need to. DC's the market leader right now.
Yeah, but you kick a guy when he's down, because presumably that's the easiest time to do it when they can't fight back.
No, because it's not.
Because really,
Marvel's not doing new imprints. That always has kind of been a DC thing. Like Marvel had Max, which it wasn't really. It was never like Vertigo. It wasn't a separate imprint. Back in the day, they had.
Oh, that's another thing they're doing. Vertigo as well. They rolled that out, I think, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, but Vertigo never left. It was always around. They just put more of a focus on it. I'm telling you, DC's always done this. I think DC owned, when they bought Wildstorm for a long time, they kept Wildstorm as a separate imprint. I don't know if DC did Milestone or not, but then they always had Vertigo. So DC's always had the separate imprints, but, Marvel never really has. So I don't think it's a response. It's just DC being DC.
Let me try to explain it in a way that that we can relate, especially when we're talking about our show. Ever since DC Rebirth, it's felt like a struggle to try to fit all these books on our list. I wonder if with these new Dark Matter books, if we're going to be reviewing even less and less Marvel, or even less and less Image. It's like it's going to be. We only have so many books that we can read in a given week. I wonder if at what point. How many of the books that we read on a weekly basis are going to just be in some way, shape, or form DC?
None of those books you named sound particularly interesting to me. So I don't know if I'm going to be really wanting to read any of them.
Some of them sound good. I wouldn't mind reading the Challengers of the Unknown series. And we've always liked Robert Venditti and Dan Abnett.
Yeah, but that's like. Well, yeah, I want to see what they do with it, because Challenges of the Unknown always struck me as like a half-assed Fantastic Four.
Even though, don't they predate the Fantastic Four?
Yeah, but nobody gave a shit about them. They've never been over.
Mm. And with Scott Snyder doing it, you have to imagine it's going to be a big deal.
Oh, Scott Snyder's writing that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no interest in it.
You like that one Image series he's doing with Lemire, where he's the artist?
Scott Snyder is the artist?
No, Lemire is the artist on that Image series, whatever it's called, AD After Death. You like that
I thought
series?
Lemire was writing that.
No, he's writing Royal City. I think you're confused because he's the artist on both those books and they have very similar art. But AD After Death is Scott Snyder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do like that.
Did I just trick you into liking Scott Snyder?
Yeah, I didn't realize he wrote that. I guess I just don't like his Batman. I didn't like The Wake either.
Oh, okay. Hey, since we're talking Batman, let's talk our final news story. Hulu debuted a trailer for something they're calling Batman and Bill.
This is interesting, actually, because it's been kind of a somewhat often mentioned story that Bill Finger is the real creator of Batman.
As a new comic book reader, I'm like, oh, DC has their own Stan Lee too?
it's not quite the same because Bob Kane didn't do that many books. Like he was nowhere near as important to DC as Stan Lee was to Marvel. But yeah, it's just like all the you didn't see like in the Batman movies. I don't know if you did in the new ones. You might have. You didn't see like Batman created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. It was always just created by Bob Kane. And I mean the artist was co-creator, and depending on who you listen to, he was the creator.
The sole creator is what you're saying.
Yes, that's been suggested. So I'm interested to see who they spoke to and what they could find out. I mean, DC obviously has a vested interest in keeping Bob Kane as the creator for whatever reason. So I don't know if they could actually talk to anyone there, but
I wonder if we'll ever get this kind of documentary series on Stan Lee. Or is it one of those things where the horse has left the barn door and nobody cares anymore? I think also part of it is too, Marvel has since made nice with the Kirby family, whereas I don't know how much money the Finger estate has got.
I mean, I've read it, but it's like in comic circles. So.
Alright, there you go. That's gonna do it for this week's news.